Good afternoon and welcome to the November Ordinary Council meeting. I'll hand over to Councillor Greg James to present a welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Sali and my fellow councillors. I'd like to pay respects to our ancestors and acknowledge our elders, both past, present and emerging. Can also acknowledge the Yorta Yorta Nations and all its people whose land we meet on today. So on behalf of the Yorta Yorta Elders Council, the 16 family groups and the 8 respected tribes who proudly share in the status of traditional owners, I say a very warm welcome to this wonderful land and waterways which is finally subsiding. So thank you, Mayor Sully.
Councillor James. Item 2, acknowledgement. We, Greater Shepparton City Council, acknowledge the Yorta Yorta peoples of the land which comprises Greater Shepparton. We pay our respect to their tribal elders. We celebrate their continuing culture and we acknowledge the memory of their ancestors. Item 3, privacy notice. This public meeting is being streamed live via our Facebook page and made available for public access on our website along with the official minutes of this meeting. Item 4, governance principles. Council considers that the recommendations contained in this agenda to the overarching governance principles stated in section 9.2 of the Local Government Act 2020. These principles are as followed and they're numbered 1 to 9 on page 6 of the agenda. Item 5, apologies nil received. Item 6, declarations of conflicts of interest. Councillors, do we have any conflicts this afternoon? No, very good. Item 7, confirmation of minutes of the previous meetings. Councillors, is there any items of the minutes opposed? No, there is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor move that? Councillor Adam.
Sally, I'll move that recommendation of the minutes of the 27th of October 2022 usual council meeting and the 27th of October 2022 additional council meeting as circulated be confirmed.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Can I have a councillor second that? Councillor Dobson. All those in favour? Motion carried. Item 8, public question time nil received. Item 9, deputations and petitions. There is one there at 9.0, which is petition to the lease of land at 20 to 22 Perryvale Drive, Shepparton petition. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone move that?
I move that the recommendation as a motion that the council receive and note the petition titled Objection to the Lease of Land at 20-22 Perryvale Drive, Shepparton petition in accordance with Governance Rule 18.
Thank you, Councillor Abdul. Can I have a councillor second that motion?
I second that motion.
Councillor Abdul, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thanks.
Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Abdullah, I presume you don't need any closing comments?
Not in this situation.
Very good. All those in favour? Motion carried. Councillors, we now turn over to page 8, which is item 10, Community Directorate nil received. Now go to page 9 of the agenda, item 11.1, October 2022 monthly financial report. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I have someone put that forward as a motion?
I'll move the Thank you. I'll move the recommendation on page 9. It says that the council receive and note the October 2022 monthly financial report.
Thank you, Councillor. The councillor second that. Councillor Dobson.
I'll second the motion that the council receive and note the October 2022 monthly financial.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Councillor Abdul, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. Just want to highlight, first of all, this is our regular, one of the regular reports that council considers at every meeting. This is about the October monthly financial report. And of course, it tells us how we are tracking against the budget. Some of the highlights of this report and also for the reports going forward is that includes that underlying operating deficit that council is presenting, and this deficit is there, and in this current projection we have an underlying deficit of nearly $18 million. So this is something that I think that we need to focus on in every consideration, because we need to in order to attain that financial sustainability for our organization, it is important that we do not lose focus on this, and our aim should be to improve this underlying operating performance, which at the moment is satisfactory. And of course, there are many pressures, there are many financial pressures that council is working under, and we need to acknowledge that. For instance, we have seen how the natural disasters such as our recent floods, they have affected and they are going to affect our operating result. We have insurance costs that are going up. We have inflation. We have we have lost income because some of our assets have been damaged and we cannot generate income from those assets. So all in all, it is putting a lot of pressure on council in terms of improving its underlying operating performance. So that's one point that I wanted to mention. The other one in that report is, of course, about the October 2022 flood, which has been highlighted. And as we know, that flood has impacted the whole community and organizations like council as well, where we have where we are saying a loss of income due to user fees and charges. And we are also saying the kind of flood relief effort that council has been involved in, and the recovery effort that council is involved in, and it's going to be for a long time that we will be engaged in those efforts. So all of that costs money and it requires funding. We have received funding of around $500,000 from the state government to assist us in the initial cleanup efforts, but in terms of our lost income and impact on the user charges, this is something that we'll have to continue to monitor, and the report tells us that our executive leadership team and the whole organization is monitoring that impact. Just to mention about the liquidity ratio, because this is one of the financial key performance indicators for council to see how we are tracking in terms of our working capital. At the moment, it is quite high, but we are in that comfortable limit, comfortable band. It is satisfactory, but it is high basically because of the high rates receivable balance that we have received, and it will be spent throughout the year. So that liquidity ratio will also reduce, but it will still be within the comfortable and satisfactory band. That's what the report is telling us. So that's all from me, but there are so many other details that we can find in that report. Thank you.
Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sali. Since the budget was adopted back in June, there's been what you might call a perfect storm arise. Council, in its wisdom, decided to have a nil increase in the rates. However, two things have happened since that time. One, of course, being inflation has risen to a great extent, and that's looking at some of the reports that are coming through management. That's put a lot of pressure on expenses such as insurances and other areas. So inflation has been one problem. The second problem has been the COVID-19, and that has meant that a lot of our facilities such as Aquamoves have been closed down for the duration, and that has put a lot of pressure on the usual income stream that we've got. And the third part of that perfect storm, of course, has been the floods. And you know, the district, although other districts have had a bigger impact than what we have, ours is big enough, and we will be getting compensation from the state government. But at this stage, you know, we don't quite know how big our debt is going to be in relation to the floods, and so we're working on it. I noticed that the state government put a 2.5% cap rate on rates for this year. We went to a 0, but it wouldn't surprise me, Mayor Sali, that the cap allocated by the state government rises by 3.5 to 4.5% in the next financial year. And that will be, in my opinion, that'll be the cap, because that will take into consideration the cost of but the cost of everything going up. But I'd also just like to point out a couple of things, and I congratulate the council on this. And one is that the second quarter rates, which were due in November, on the 1st of December, I think it is, has been put back by 3 weeks, and that is ordered for people who normally would pay their instalment that date. We've given them some time to pay. But the second part, which is more important to me, is that the council is prepared to look at those flood-affected properties and make an assessment over the coming months to see whether or not some properties have been really affected by floods, that we can actually help them out by giving them some sort of a rebate in their rates. Now, that's not everybody, and there will be an assessment made on an individual basis through individual properties, and those properties would have been flood affected, and in fact, some properties still haven't been able to get back through. Can I just say, while we're talking about that, that especially out in the farming areas, that people who have been affected by floods, they're up to $50,000 worth, or I think it's $75,000 worth of flood help assistance given by the state government. So I really would like, you know, farmers and people out there whose businesses have been affected by the floods to in fact have a go at that. I know that's not part of our financial arrangements, but I think we're talking, this is community money that we're talking about here, and I think we've got to take a holistic view on going forward, especially over the next 2 or 3 years.
Very good, thank you, councillor Dobson. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. I'd just like to speak to, it is a financial report and it's based on October, and of course October, what a month that we've had. I will speak about the finances, but in particularly I'm speaking to the people out there that are perhaps viewing it and just wanting to know how the council is going. The council costs, because of the flood for this particular month that is gone, will be significant. A bit offset somewhat by some government support, but the costs will be significant, and we're still grappling with what those costs will be. But it's the cost to, not only to the council, but also to the community, and also cost to some individuals, probably more so, because sometimes in a lot of cases, not only are their homes affected, but their businesses are affected as well, which we've gone and we've visited many of those. So it's a financial aspect, but it's also the livelihood. It's the emotional cost, which cannot be accounted for in this particular financial report. So we're very mindful of that. So I say to those that are still affected, are still grappling with it, that recovery assistance is still available. Both Councillor Abdullah and Councillor Dobson pointed that out, that they are still available and there is some funding out there for them, so please reach out for that. We will know the costs as they come in the future months, and of course, particularly in the second quarter, when we sit down and associate where we are with the bottom line. But the other councillors are absolutely right. There'll be major financial pressures on council in the coming months and going into the budget for the following year. But thus, the result that's been put here for the quarter is what the other councillors have pointed out. So we know where we're tracking, and we just we'll know even further in a month or so's time.
Very good, thank you, councillor Brophy. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Ms. Sally. This report was from the month of October, and it does outline an operating deficit of almost 20 million. This is a concern to me because councillors have limited oversight over operations, which by definition are operational. The council has set 0 rate rises for 2 years now, which should send a clear message to the organisation that we do need to tighten our purse strings just as the community does. However, it seems to be business as usual. I don't accept that lower ratings are responsible for this deficit. Supplementary rates are healthy, CIVs are rising, and the approximate 1.5 we'd have gained through rate rises doesn't come close to closing this gap. In drawing some very long bows, we could point the finger at reduced income from free parking, but that doesn't come close to our annual spend on SAM and other projects. We could talk about rebudgeting capital items, but we're still proposing to reinvigorate GB Link, which is an expensive and high-risk capital project. We could talk about flood mitigation, but there hasn't yet been a tangible impact on our budget due to state contributions. It's very difficult to take an informed position on this budget with such conflicting priorities. Interestingly, the risk matrix states that the consequence for not achieving financial sustainability as moderate. Personally, I'd have thought this measure would be listed as extreme because not maintaining solvency would essentially get us all sacked. We must apply oversight and we must encourage some hard operational decisions, else we run the risk of long-term financial insecurity and input by administrators or the inspectorate.
Thank you, councillor Simon. Just on that, there has been, for clarification on one point that you made there has been measures put in place by executive to accommodate the deficit that we're facing. So the comment there is in some ways not true.
They haven't done anything.
They have done. They've put measures in place to accommodate the deficit that we're facing. So I think that it's unfair to state that that hasn't been done.
Okay. Well, when it repairs itself, then I'll have a different opinion maybe.
That's fine. Are there any councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Adam?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. We've had some quite detailed discussion about this in the last 10 or so minutes, and I agree with all the points that have been made. Even Councillor Summers here, she made some valid points as well. However, look, at the end of the day, that liquidity figure of 160%, that's the number that I look at, which basically means we're worth more than we owe, and that's always a good position to be in. However, obviously there's challenges that we're going to be facing over the next few months and possibly a few years, for all the reasons that were mentioned today, the flood, obviously the impact of that, and we're still having a hangover from expenses encountered by the COVID-19 pandemic as well. However, as I say, high expenditure, less income, this is the result we're at. We've effectively been pretty well managed financially, I think, for many, many years, if not decades, in this council, and I have every expectation that we will still obviously address this current challenge. There's many other ways we can reduce our expenditure. We don't maybe necessarily want to discuss them now or go to those measures, but they're there, always an option on the table to reduce services, potentially pull the belt in. I don't think we're in a bad position, we're in a challenging position, but I have every confidence that we will actually work through this.
Thank you, councillor. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? All right. Councillor, any closing comments?
Yeah, thank you. Just to say that, of course, when we're talking about, I think right now we are talking about our underlying operating position, which at the moment is deficit. And I think we have all talked about what needs to be done to change it to an underlying operating surplus, and which is about, we can do it through increased revenues or reducing our recurrent expenditure and a review of services or things like that. So that conversation is, and Councillor Summer, you have highlighted some of the ways where that could be done, and I appreciate that those are your personal views, but we collectively as council, we need to have that discussion on an ongoing basis about what are our priorities, where do we want to cut the expenses through maybe reduce services, and how can we increase our revenues. So these are like, this is, as I'm saying that Councillor Summer has highlighted some of the ways, but this is only your opinion, and we need to have a collective discussion and agreement on these priorities.
Order, I haven't actually identified anything tangible that would fix it. I was just illustrating.
Yep, you have given some examples about, for instance, capital expenditure around GB Lang or rates and things like that. But what I'm saying is that these are your individual opinions and perspectives, similar to other opinions that may be existing here. And when we're talking about our priorities, we need to have a collective, discuss that and have a collective position on that. And different councillors can have different view of what the priorities should be or could be. So that's the only thing that I'm trying to make, but that's about it. Thanks.
Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried on. Those councillors, we now go to page 13 of the agenda, item 11.2, contracts awarded under delegation, October. Councillors, there is a recommendation for that motion. Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I move the recommendation 11.2, contracts awarded under delegation on page 13. I'll read out the recommendation. The council note in number 1 that no contracts were awarded under delegation pursuant to a formal tender or quotation process for the reporting period, and number 2, requests for tenders advertised but not yet awarded.
Thank you, Councillor James. Can I have a councillor second the motion? Councillor Summer. Councillor James, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. In number 1 of the recommendation, there were no contracts for tender or quotation. In number 2, the requests for tenders advertised but not yet awarded are currently There are 6 currently under evaluation. I'd like to note that contract number 2240 is re-advertised, and that's the Tally Children's childcare upgrade. So I'd just encourage tenderers to reapply for that one. Others are carryovers from previous months. Two of the other contracts are recreational paths and renewal of footpaths at Monash Park as well. The other tenders are stage 2 of Carabok Park, detailed design upgrades of Shep and Ardmona Resource and Recovery Centre, and the other one is Marlborough Drive, the development road upgrade. Sally?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. This is a section of the agenda that lists some contracts awarded under delegation. The section is not required under the Local Government Act, and I don't believe it's required to be exhaustive, but nevertheless, it's a good exercise in partial transparency. Marlborough Drive pops up very regularly, which I assume has to be because of developer contributions. It's been consistent for many years. And I'm pleased to see the contract for upgrading our transfer station is progressing, because that will significantly reduce our waste to landfill. Waiting for that to happen for a very long time. Might also mention in the report, there is a small change just to make it more transparent. The financial delegation to directors to approve contracts up to a value of 200,000, and then in brackets, which has been missing up until now, noting the director of corporate services has 500,000. So obviously that is ongoing unless we change it in the procurement policy. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Samar. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors for the motion? No. Councillor James, any closing comments? No. Now go to vote. All those in favour? Motion carried on opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 16 of the agenda, 11.3, procurement policy amendments, September 2022. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd like to put forward the following recommendation. Council adopt the procurement policy and supplier code of conduct as attached.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Can I have a councillor second that motion?
Second motion.
Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, look, this is an update of the amendments made to the procurement policy, which was passed just less than 12 months ago. So it's an updated, there's some things that have been included and changed in it. Is the incorporation of the child safety standards, which is obviously involved in that as well. There's typographical and grammatical errors which have been amended, which is really pleasing to see. And there's been the removal of the references to some contract variations. They're already replaced in other operational delegations and policies, so they don't necessarily need to be in this particular one. And also a reference made to the council plan of 2021 to 2025 has been included, as well as a number of other minor changes in that as well. So this is just basically a bit of a facelift less than 12 months after.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you. Just quickly want to highlight that, that the two main amendments or revisions to the policy include inclusion of child safe standards, and all organizations in Victoria that provide services and facilities for children are required to comply with those standards. And we want to ensure that our organization, our contractors, our third-party providers, they are also abiding by these standards. And the second one is, of course, the code that has been developed by the Victorian state government to include a supplier code of conduct within that sort of in the procurement practice. So these are two main, in addition to what Councillor Brophy has already highlighted, these are two main updates to the policy, and I'm happy to endorse the updated policy.
Very good, thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'm generally supportive of the motion, but I am objecting because adopting the policy will exclude the section about awarding variances. They are vaguely proposed to be dealt with through other policies and conditions, which may limit councillor oversight. After some rigmarole in unsuccessfully trying to get details on variances for Watt Road and Sam, I believe we need more oversight, not less. So
I'll actually pull you up on that. There's been information provided to all councillors and you in particular regarding Watts Road. So I don't.
yeah, sorry, I must have misspoke. So after the rigmarole in unsuccessfully trying to get details on variances and accumulated spend for Sam following the legal advice read aloud by the CEO during the Watt Road variance item, I believe we need more oversight, not less. That's it.
Thank you. Are there any councillors that would like to speak in the motion? Councillor Adam.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. I just want to read the executive summary, actually. I couldn't have worded it any better, so I'm going to read it. Council adopted the procurement policy version 7.0 on 21st December 2021 due to changes in legislation. The policy now requires minor amendments to ensure it continues to remain compliant. Obviously, that's important. The policy has been amended to reflect the recent introduction of requirements relating to child safety standards, which was mentioned earlier, in addition to minor administrative changes which improve consistency with related council policies and the correction of some typographical errors. That's all I have to say. Yes, Sally.
Are there any councillors that would like to speak in the motion? Murphy, closing comments?
No, all been said, thank you.
All those in favour? Motion carried. Council, we now go to page 11.4, instrument of delegation to the Chief Executive Officer. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Please have some.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'll move that the council, in the exercise of power conferred by section 11 in brackets 1 brackets B of the Local Government Act 2020, the Act, resolves that there be delegated to the person holding the position, acting in or performing the duties of Chief Executive Officer, the powers, duties and functions set out in the attached instrument of delegation to the Chief Executive Officer, subject to the conditions and limitations specified in that instrument. Before I go to point 2, I'd like to add the following, called it 1.1, with the following changes to the conditions and limitations described in item 1.1 and 1.2 of the attached instrument of delegation to the CEO, to amend the proposed financial delegations from 1.5 million ex-GST to $1 million ex-GST. Point 2, the instrument comes into force immediately the Chief Executive Officer's signature is affixed to the instrument. 3, on the coming into force of the instrument, all previous delegations to the Chief Executive Officer are revoked. 4, the duties and functions set out in the instrument must be performed and the powers set out in the instruments must be executed in accordance with any guidelines or policies of council that may from time to time adopt.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Obviously, councillors, there has been a change there. I presume all of you got that or should have a copy of that in front of you before we proceed. Very good. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Abdullah.
Yeah, I'll second this motion.
Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Sally. Look, this is almost a procedural motion. The previous delegation top amount was, I think, around $750,000, and I think what this motion suggests is that the increase in expenses and the increase in running and the increase in capital works revolving around this council means that we need to give the officers more say to more efficiently run their operations so that they won't be holding up smaller contracts that have to come back to the council chamber every time these come up for adjudication. So it's quite simple. All we're doing is increasing the delegation. It could have been more, but at this time, I think $1 million will see us right. Remembering, councillors, that in the future, in another 6 months or 12 months, if we find that this is inadequate, we can then perhaps rise it by another amount if we so desire or it's required. But I'm looking at this purely as an efficiency gain. We can't be having contracts, especially in this day and age where contracts can change almost week to week, that you get a set of circumstances where wages rise, where insurances rise, all these costs rise almost on a weekly or a monthly basis. And if we've got to hold up contracts that have got to come to a council chamber for adjudication with amounts up to $1 million, I think it's a waste of time. So this gives us more flexibility, and I gives us, our management people, more flexibility, and I wholeheartedly endorse this recommendation.
Councillor Dobson. Councillor Abdul, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you. So this motion is mainly about the instrument of delegation to the CEO, and as we know that this instrument is one of the most powerful instruments or the tools for for our council to delegate this authority and responsibility to the CEO to run the organization. This particular motion is talking about the revised financial delegation for the CEO, and that revised delegation is up to $1 million. Now, as Councillor Dobson has already highlighted, that the reason for this revision is mainly due to the current, to introduce efficiencies in our process. We know that the current construction industry is experiencing challenges. They have high demand for contractors, and currently in our delegations to the CEO, it takes roughly 11 weeks for the whole process to finish. So by increasing the delegation amount to $1 million, we believe that it will bring efficiencies. It will introduce shorter cycle of tender awards, and which means that more and more projects can start and finish earlier, and they will reduce the delays. Delegations, I think it requires a balancing act. Delegations should not be under controlling or over controlling, I believe, but it is also about ensuring that whatever delegations we are comfortable with and we are delegating, there are checks and balances or some controls that are available, that are in place, and through that we make sure that we enable and also to some extent empower the CEO to achieve the best outcomes for this organization. And the best outcomes, of course, also includes running the organization in the most efficient manner. So I believe that as long as we have the checks and balances, the delegated amount of $1 million is something that I'm comfortable with. I'm accepting this motion in the knowledge that we have those controls in place. We know that the delegations are not going to be misused because we have the policies to monitor these delegations, such as our procurement policy, which has the requirement of having probity assurances in it. That's one example. And also we know that every expenditure that is going to be made under this delegation, it's for the contracts, and those contracts have already got an approved budget through the council's approval process. So the budget is set and approved by the council, and according to that, expenditure is made. And the third thing around that control is that there's regular reporting. There's a regular reporting on contracts that are awarded under delegation, and we've seen this in our report in our agenda this month, and that report is brought to us every month. So basically, I'm comfortable with this delegation, given the fact that we do have appropriate controls, checks and balances in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abdul. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Song.
Thank you, Councillor Sali. I must admit that this recommendation came as a shock. Council suggested we triple the CEO delegation from 500,000 to 1.5 million, and now we're debating a $1 million delegation excluding GST and with the 20% contingency, which takes the tally back to 1.5 million. During my very first term, the CEO delegation was raised from 250,000 to 750,000. At that time, $1.5 million delegation was basically unheard of. So I moved a notice of motion to reduce that level back down to 500,000. I don't believe the cost and necessity has risen by 300% since then. So I wish to foreshadow a motion to only increase the CEO delegation to 750,000. And I'm unsure where the request has come from. We're told it came from industry, but we have seen nothing in writing. We don't know who supposedly offered this advice. And there does seem to be a coordinated push across councils for higher CEO delegations, with some landing at 1 million. And I do hope we're not following the crowd without due consideration. I'm concerned most of you are dismissing my opinion based on a paradox. Somehow it's become accepted that any criticism I have against a CEO item is to do with the personal agenda. I'll take this opportunity to remind you all, it's our job to hold this organisation to account. This is not personal. I reduced the delegation during Gavin Cater's time as CEO. I had a lot of respect for that man, but that was simply too high of a delegation. Our decisions must be based on facts, not personal politics, innuendo, groupthink, unconscious bias, or blindly following the path of least resistance. We were only informed of a small handful of examples from other councils who's raised delegations to similar levels recently. Despite requesting a deeper dive into comparisons, this request was refused. We're told there's 16 projects that will no longer have councillor oversight, and we still don't know what those projects are. Councillor Spinks asked 3 very good questions days ago when the agenda was released. Councillor Abdullah asked 3 very good questions yesterday. Today, Councillor Brophy emailed a follow-up question put during last Tuesday's briefing, none of which have been answered, which demonstrates total contempt for the councillor deliberation process.
Point of order.
Yeah, Councillor Dobson, what's your point of order?
My point of order is that 75.1.3.2, making comments that are defamatory, malicious or abusive or offensive. I believe those last comments made by Councillor Summer fall under that category, and ask her to retract.
I'll Councillor Summer retract those comments, please.
Tell me how, can you tell me how that's defamatory?
Well, he highlighted that perhaps, well, you're effectively accusing the CEO of withholding information.
Well, we haven't had answers to your question
It's
yet.
very clear to councillors that the information was provided, and then you would go to an OCM and you go through the process to accept, laying the motion on the table or voting down.
It's very hard for me not to maintain that not answering questions doesn't show a contempt of
Point
the
of order,
council
Mayor.
deliberation process.
I've given a response.
Okay, I retract the comments.
Thank you.
Proceed. Would you like to proceed, or?
I would like to proceed, thank you. Just with this debate, it's interesting because I'm often shut down by my manner and tone, and that seems to be a growing criticism of elected women in local government when it comes
Point of order.
to pointing ends. Yes.
Point of order.
Councillor Summer, that's not relevant to what we're talking about now. You've accused the CEO, not the person, which is what you highlighted through your initial discussion point. So I'm representing, and we are representing the one person that we employ, and you outlined that he deliberately withheld information from us. That is not the case.
Well, I dissent from the ruling of the chair because that he told us today that he was not going to answer our emails. So how am I supposed
It's
to?
very clear that the information was provided, and you either accept that information or you don't.
Is that he-
I call for the vote, you either put your hand up or you don't. That's a simple.
Can I finish what I'm saying, please?
Please.
Sounds like this was very well prepared in advance, but anyway. Some councillors may be placated by the fact only budgeted items can be funded under delegation, but it's more complicated than that. Council's position is that all adopted budgets are no longer valid once a quarter review has taken place, usually with changes. So don't be surprised if delegated costs and variances cause our capital budget to follow our operating budget, with longer-term projects pushed out to later years. And I am going to say this, during the probation period, a line item was changed. During the probation period of the CEO, a line item was changed without any councillor resolution, and it was called an error. Now, this was,
What relevance does that have?
it means that, even though, whether you agree with that or not, nothing's been done to rebuild trust, and it doesn't assure council that unannounced changes to the budget won't happen again.
Point of order.
Oh, here we go.
Again,
I'll end up suspending standing orders until we can actually appropriately
He just
move.
point of order everything, can he? No matter what it is, or?
I can't determine what a councillor wants to point of order, right? That's an individual choice that councillor Dobson has taken, and then I have to respond accordingly. So the last comment there, no relevance, councillor Summer.
No relevance that he
No
changed the budget without a formal resolution, and that could happen again, and then he just uses his delegation to push it forward.
It's not relevant.
Okay. Well, anyway, I strongly urge you all to reject the recommendation. There is no tangible risk in keeping the CEO delegation exactly the same. We have not lost any contracts. Our workload is not unreasonable. Already, councillors have limited input and oversight. So please don't make that problem worse. There are so many holes in this proposal, I just hope it sinks to the bottom of a very deep lake and stays there.
Thank you, councillor Summer. Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Briefing.
Thank you, Mayor Saleh. In terms of the amount that we're talking about of the delegation from 500,000 through to 1.5 million, now back to $1 million. I too have, like Councillor Summer and others, have waxed and waned in terms of what would be appropriate. And it's taken me a little bit of information to gather, you know, like-mindedness, what other regional councils may have in their particular. Now, we are different than every other council in terms of what our capital budget will be, our capital expenditure in terms of what we've got on an annual basis. So you've got to bear that in mind as well. But you can go from the extremes, like if you look at, say, Ballarat or Mitchell Shire, for instance, they're only still at 500,000, which is exactly the same as us. If you look at some of the more neighbouring ones like Campaspe, Macedon, they're 1 million, but also so is Mildura and the city of Latrobe, which is sort of like-mindedness, but they've got a far less capital expenditure budget in terms of that. We go across to Bendigo. Now they're 1.65 million for the delegation for their CEO, but of course that would take into account, including GST, I would think, probably 1.5 plus your GST. But then you've got the more extreme, which is more like Wodonga City Council. Theirs, believe it or not, is $5 million that is delegated to the CEO for the current budget, if it's already a current budget item line. But if it's not a current budget item line, it's $500,000. So in terms of that, it is a little bit different if you look across the regional spectrum. You know, it is important to bear in mind, you know, who do have similar capital budgets, because that gives us an indication of what contracts, what tenders are out there in regards to that. And look, I have the confidence in the sense of the security net, if you like, in that we do approve this through foreshadowed budgets as well. So we know what's to be expected. There aren't too many surprises. Variances are another thing, but that's a completely different issue. But in terms of that, in terms of the budget and the capital budget particularly, generally what comes before us in terms of what's been approved by the CEO is an efficiency thing, and it's more so, there's no great surprises in that. Any great surprises do come before us, so I think I'm reasonably comfortable with that. I probably would have gone higher, but at 1.5, but yeah, I'm comfortable with 1 million at this point.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Saleh. I support this recommendation to the delegation to the CEO, whether it's 1 million, 1.5 or 2 million. It's basically this council's decision to make that decision on where or which way we want to go. And I respect Councillor Summer's concerns. A number of our awarded contracts in the past have been held up by bureaucracy, by financial constraints, etc., which ultimately has led to this council having to sit at a council table and approve variations, which at the end ends up we have to go back and it comes out of our ratepayers' costs. So in the end, we have to do that. This delegation will hopefully eliminate any of those anticipated variations that do crop up, speed up the process of contracts and expenditures. And as my understanding, a proposed review every 6 months will provide us with an indication on the impacts of this increase in a delegation to the CEO. I know there are concerns, and Councillor Abdullah, Councillor Spinks, Councillor Brophy has asked for some of those concerns to come, and we will get those answers, and they will contribute towards that review processes, and we will get those, and respectfully, I had some same concerns about the review process until I understand that those balances and checks, which has been highlighted, the checkers are us. We're the ones who do the balancing and checking, councillors. We're the ones who actually make that decision on whether we then, after review, we say, no, well, the 1.5 is too high, the 1 million is too high, we're going to reduce it back to whatever we decide on. But at this stage, the way my belief is, let's look at the process. Well, the process is not working all that thoroughly to the best of our advantage. So I support this in regards to that.
Very good, thank you, councillor James. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I will just address, I did ask a couple of questions that's been mentioned, and I will clarify, I actually only asked them at 9 o'clock this morning, so it should be made that I only gave a few hours notice for those responses, and we were told that there would not be time to provide those responses, and that sometimes is a part of it, that there just wasn't enough time to get the answer I needed, and then I will choose whether I have enough information or not, and will vote accordingly to my decision from that. My questions themselves, the first question was, in regards to this increase in delegation was originally proposed because there are projects that are being delayed, currently taking about 11 weeks to get through, and it's causing an inefficiency in the process for tenderers. And the proposed 1.5 would potentially reduce that to 3 weeks. I did ask, we were told that there would be 18 projects, 12 of those at 1.5 million would be reduced to that 3-week timeline. I did ask the question of what percentage, if dropped to $1 million, of those projects would still be reduced to 3, whether we sort of came to the 1 million was proposed as sort of a compromise meeting in the middle of those two figures, the original 500 to the proposed 1.5, which I understand how that was proposed. But I did question whether that would really cover it, really do enough of an impact in regards to and in respect of that original purpose. The response that I was given did highlight that projects are just increasing in cost and that potentially it would not cover the vast majority of those projects. But I can still recognise that the 1 million would be a comfortable compromise in the middle, comfortable for some maybe, compromise in the middle, and that we will have the ability to, what's the word? Review what is achieved in that million. Thank you, across the table. The second question I did ask was this is quite a quick way that we can create better efficiencies from a delegation perspective, but there also, I would argue, is potentially an issue in the system of how we get these projects through tendering processes and to us. If 11 weeks is too long, how are we still also working to reduce that from a council ownership perspective? And I have not yet received a question to that, but that's something I will continue to follow up, and I feel comfortable that not having an answer to that doesn't impact my ability to make a decision today. So I want to, my questions had been raised, I wanted to reflect that. I also want to second what has been raised about balance. Councillor Abdullah mentioned it first, and I'm sure others did as well, that this is about the balancing act, which is in every decision we make, between how much ownership and control councillors have, which is a part of our responsibility, over the responsibility of the organisation to function and the CEO to be able to make decisions on behalf of that organisation on a day-to-day basis. We have an approved budget. These projects come to us in briefings and they intend to ramp those up as well, which I support. And this particular delegation policy comes to us every 6 months. So I feel comfortable that there are controls in place that we will be watching very closely. And that balance is really what we're trying to achieve here today. I think all decisions, but today especially, of a question of trust and a question of checks and balances. Ultimately, no one around this table, I believe, is an engineer or a project manager. We are a very high level overseer of the works of, are you? Oh,
Councillor Abdullah.
Sorry. Moving on. We're not engineers or project managers. Ultimately, at some point, we need to trust the projects and the individuals that we have working at our council who are exceptional at what they do. And ultimately, right now, this will be the individual decision of each councillor whether they are or are not comfortable with this delegation. And in 6 months' time, we'll be back at this table doing it all over again. So we will go to the vote and democracy will do what it does. Thanks.
Thanks. I think that's, yeah, are there any councillors? Councillor Adam?
Yes, thank you.
Would you like to speak?
I will, thank you. I think everyone's pretty well covered most of the areas I wish to cover, including Councillor Summer. made some very valid points. I mean, our responsibility as councillors and our obligation is to oversee the council's business to a degree. This is a very important part of it. Obviously, it's a part where we spend the money. However, as Councillor Brophy mentioned, all those different variations of other councils, 1.5 to 500,000, there's so many other factors that come into those figures. It's not just the capital budget amount, which is, I'd suggest we're one of the larger ones in the region, especially in regional Victoria, apart from Melbourne, obviously. So it can't be just a simple formula of saying, well, we've got X amount of people, X capital budget, and that's what the formula lands on. It's good to get that information because it gives you a real good guide. 1.5, yeah, it seems a huge leap from 500,000 because it is, obviously. So everything about getting things done is about compromising, and I'm happy with one at this stage. Knowing that, as Councillor Spinks indicated, this is a review process. It can happen in 6 months if we choose to. I don't suspect we will be, we may review it. I don't suspect we'll be changing it, to be honest, unless we go higher. So I think all the checks and balances are in place. They've always been in place, not just on this particular motion today. I think they've always done their job successfully, and I have no issue with supporting the $1 million addition to this motion.
Very good, thank you, Councillor Adam. Just quickly before I go to closing comments for Councillor Dobson, that, yeah, obviously a lot's been said in regards to the favourable $1 million amount, and keep in mind that the organisation did propose 1.5, so the fact that we have done their checks and balances and determined that the 1 million is more of an appropriate delegation. I'm a huge supporter of Chris Teitzel, our Director of Corporate Finance, and acknowledge the fact that although it is appropriate at times to look outside the square and see what other councils are doing, that you know, we focus on what we believe we need to create as many efficiencies as we possibly can within our own organisation. That was clearly identified. 1.5 was put forward, and now a proposal of you know, 1 million is on the table for our consideration. So we are assessing it. I can appreciate Councillor Summers' request of 750, but you know, this is a $250,000 difference of what we're going to propose. So I think, in fairness, you know, going to 1 million seems accommodating on what exact want to achieve for some efficiencies. We'll see what that looks like over the course of the next 6 months, and if need be, we can make necessary changes there. And what gives me confidence is that, you know, we can back the organisation in supporting them to provide some efficiencies, and if that's the change, we can go beyond the million. If not, we maintain the million, and at least we've offered some sort of room for movement within the organisation. So from me,
yes, I do have some. I'm reflecting on what Councillor Abdullah has talked about, and she made 3 points which stuck with me. One is that we've got an approved budget, and we work within that approved budget unless there are some extraneous circumstances. She talked about the reporting process that we go through, and that's very diligent. And she also talked about the procurement controls that we have in place at the moment. And so with those three, they're the checks and balances. We do have our internal checks and balances. And finally, Councillor Mayor Sali, can I just say this, and reading from the report, recent benchmarking has identified that this increased delegation limit is consistent with that of similar sized councils and will improve the organisation's ability to award contracts and engage services in a timely manner without encountering the time delays associated with obtaining a council resolution. The words that are missing there is the word cost, and so I'm glad it looks like we've got support for this, and I look forward to what the new delegation means.
Councillor Dobson, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Against?
Division, please, Mayor Sali.
Very good. All those in favour? Councillor Sali, Councillor Brophy, Councillor James, Councillor Spinks, Councillor Adam, Councillor Dobson, Councillor Abdullah. Against? Councillor Summer. Motion carried. Councillors, we now go to page 23 of the agenda, item 11.5, issuing delegation to members of council staff. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I have someone put that forward as a motion, please?
I'll move the recommendation as printed on page 23 of the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Adam.
I'll second the motion, Mayor Sally.
Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. This is an interesting one. It does come to us from time to time, usually in a package like this. Council is required to endorse all delegations at a public meeting, even though the CEO is largely responsible for managing staff and internal operations. This still comes to us. It's a very large document. It'd be almost impossible to offer any constructive criticism, as councillors are discouraged from interacting with staff. The only employee we are responsible for is the CEO. So perhaps in days past, we had much more oversight on these operational matters, but it is an example of requiring some kind of faith in our CEO. We need to have that faith in our CEO and assume that he has appointed delegations appropriately. So I can never see any reason to object to these, so I'm going to vote in favour again.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Summer. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Absolutely not.
Very good. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? And Councillor Summer, closing comments?
No, thank you.
We'll now go to vote. All those in favour? Motion carried on both. Councillors, we now go to page 26 of the agenda, item 11.6, Instrument of Delegation and Instrument of Sub-Delegation Environment Protection Act 2017. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Dobson.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I move in exercise of the power conferred by section 242 in brackets 2 of the Environmental Protection Act 2017 and the instrument of delegation of the Environment Protection Authority under the Act dated 4 June 2021. Greater Shepparton City Council, that is the council, resolves that 1, the members of council staff referred to in the instrument attached be appointed and authorised as set out in the instrument. 2, the instrument comes into force immediately upon being signed by Council's Chief Executive Officer and remains in force until Council determines to vary or revoke it.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Summer. Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Delegations are a critical part of council functionality, and this is just one more section of it. And it's to do with the environment protection agencies. And the report tells us that the agency has conferred powers relating to the regulation of residential noise, litter, waste and on-site waste management. The instrument provides specified council officers with the powers, duties and functions to allow them to make the day-to-day decisions necessary to provide responsive and high-quality service to the community. Once again, this occurs so it doesn't have to come back to a council meeting. Thank you, Mayor Sally.
Councillor Dobson. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor Sally.
Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? We'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried. Councillors, we now go to page 29 of the agenda, item 11.7, appointment of board directors, Shepparton Art Museum. There is a recommendation. Can I have someone please put that forward as a motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd like to put forward the following recommendation. The council approve the following reappointments to the board of Shepparton Art Museum Limited for a 3-year term, effective from 16th of December 2022, that being Peter Harriott as Company Director and Chris Teitzel as Company Director.
Councillor Brophy. Councillor second that motion. Councillor Adams.
Second the motion, Mayor Sally.
Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, look, thank you very much. Just briefly, that our CEO, Peter Harriott, and our Director of Corporate Services, Chris Teitzel, has been on the SAM Limited board since the inception back in April 2016. Their tenure is, the maximum you can do is 9 years, and of course coming up in 3-year lots. And of course, we're seeking that they retain there for the next 3 years. Of course, over the weekend, it was the first birthday anniversary of SAM opening, and it was wonderful to see the amount of people that were there. The project itself has had a lot of vision and a lot of courage, and the 2 people who we've nominated for the board have had that in regards to that particular project. It's not just an art gallery, it's an art museum, and there is a different differentiation there. It is a museum because it also incorporates the Tourist Information Centre. It also incorporates the gift centre, and of course with Christmas coming up for everybody watching, make sure that you get some gifts there. but also Keilor Arts, which is really, really important, which is at the very heart of it and the very base of it as you go in. And of course, the cafe and the balcony, when the balcony's open with the mosquitoes, of course. But of course, the SAM is, in its name, it's got the feel, it's got the ambience, and it's got the vibe. And I think that anybody who's visited that, and I've spoken to a number of people who've come up specifically from Metro Melbourne and from interstate that have come specifically for SAM. And we've seen over the first anniversary how the patronage has grown, the amount of people coming in, the money that's coming into the economy, into this particular region, and we need even more so post-COVID, of course, and post the floods. We certainly need that to come in. We are invested, and not only us, but there are a number of other people that are invested as well. The federal government, and I'll pay credit to Damien Drum there, who really in for that particular cause as well. The state government, and that's been supported of all political persuasions across the state government as well. And whether it be Labor or the coalition or our independent here has been fully supportive of this particular project. Local government, philanthropic has been very generous with the amount of people that have come on board there, and also community funding, which has been absolutely excellent. Even in hard times, the community's been able to help fund it as well. So they're all champions of this particular project, which is not a project anymore, but it's into fruition. It's actually the museum. Therefore, a continuum of our two company directors is very relevant and very appropriate on this for a further 3 years. And which will be their final term as well, and I look forward to hopefully the appointment being approved.
Very good, thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, just very briefly, Mayor Sali. First of all, I'd like to commend Councillor Brophy on the free advertisement he just gave for the SAM. It was fabulous and fantastic. Absolutely, I almost forgot we were voting on there for a second. Mr. Harriott, Mr. Teitzel, obviously, were part of the initial push for this whole project, played a big role. They've done a great job. I have no issue with putting them on for another 3 years. And obviously, this is a company limited by guarantee, so they're, suppose they're not going to suffer any consequences potentially if they don't do the right thing. Potentially, but I'm sure they won't.
Very good, Councillor Adam. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. The motion doesn't sit comfortably with me due to perceived or actual conflicts of interest. I believe the Local Government Act does state that conflict of interest is exempt from this governance model or something along those lines, but it doesn't exclude the broader ethics of maintaining impartiality. We've just adopted a procurement policy requiring all suppliers to adhere to conflict of interest principles. That's not under the Local Government Act, I'd be silent on that. Council's also released a directive for advisory committee members to adhere to conflict of interest principles. This is to the point where councillor committee members are discouraged from having any voting rights. I just can't see how this proposed appointment is not a gross example of double standards. That does make a mockery of our conflict of interest principles. We should be protecting our staff from the direct pressure of material conflicts and allow the SAM board to become more independent. It's a no from me.
Good. It has been clarified as well, as you did mention.
I know they're allowed, doesn't make it right ethically.
No, that's fine. That's your.
Double standards.
Are there any councillors? Councillor Dobson.
Gonna pull me up on that too? Jack?
Double standards. Probably not.
Oh, I just illustrated.
I think it's my turn.
We'll leave it at that. We've made it clear in regards to that it's been cleared that Peter and Chris, which was raised, and I can appreciate the concerns, and I think I was even the one who did raise the fact of how the CEO and director can sit on that and was appropriately addressed. So, I mean...
I'm not disputing that. I'm disputing the ethics when it's the Local Government Act doesn't say, look, I'm not repeating myself, I've just said all that. I've justified why I personally think it's double standards.
Yeah.
And I'm not retracting that comment.
Yeah, I wouldn't think it's double standards, but that's your opinion.
It is my opinion.
Are there any councillors that would like to speak for?
Yes.
Councillor Dobson?
I see no double standards involved in this operation at all. What I see is that we've got two senior people from our management team that the council will put on the board of SAM to protect our interest, because we do have an interest. Not only do we have a financial interest in the operation, but we also have a community interest on behalf of our ratepayers. to ensure that the operation goes as well as can be expected. There is no conflict of interest at all because the Local Government Act it's quite evident from what the Local Government Act says that we don't have any conflict of interest. Neither there should be, because I might remind Councillor Summer that she was on a board, a waste management board, as a member of this council, acting on behalf of the council, as I was, and Councillor Abdullah was at the same time. So from time to time, the Act allows councillors to be on community committees such as this, and I think it's very important that the ratepayers have.
Point of order, I'm not talking about councillors, so I don't understand the.
We have every.
Sorry, what's your point of order, Councillor?
I don't understand the relevance of talking about councillors on committees when this is not referring to councillors on committees.
We'll move on. Councillor Dobson.
So it's very important that this council maintains a good presence within the Shepparton Art Museum, and just the same as Councillor Brophy, although I couldn't be as eloquent as he in promoting the operation somewhere where our visitors should go. So I endorse this.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? No. We will now, closing comments, Councillor Brophy?
Look, just to sum up a couple of things there, that the board is comprised of 9 company directors, so we've only got 2 on there, so we certainly won't be outvoting anybody. But in terms of that, it is a skill-based board as well, and I think the 2 that have been on there for the 6 years are highly skilled in this particular area. It is legally appropriate. It is continuity in terms of what they're there. And I'd just like to finish by saying, if you're not in the game, then you're not in the game.
Very good analogy. All right, councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Against?
That was 4, sorry.
So we'll do it again. All those in favour?
Again, sorry.
Against?
Division, please, Ms Sarli.
Thank you. Councillor Sarli, all those in favour? Councillor Sarli, Councillor Brophy, Councillor James, Councillor Spinks, Councillor Adam, Councillor Dobson, Councillor Abdullah. Against? Councillor Summer, motion carried. Councillors, we now go to page 32 of the agenda, item 12, C239 GSHE, Greater Shepparton Planning Scheme. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I have someone put that forward to the motion, please?
Happy.
Councillor Summer, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Sarli. I won't read it out. I just want to move exactly what's written on page 32 of the agenda, please.
Very good, thank you. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Any councillor like to second that motion? Councillor Spinks. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, from what I can gather, there's been an extensive amount of work done by staff to progress this, which is one of our identified growth areas near Raftery Road. We received 19 submissions, which were mostly in support for a change. It has gone to a DCP hearing, which resulted in some changes recommended to be integrated in the amendment. And I'm comfortable with what's presented. I just want to congratulate our planning staff because they managed to resolve almost all of the concerns prior to moving forward, which is never an easy task. So that's a really great outcome.
Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Adam.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sarli. I'm obviously not against development. This particular development, I know it's been a bit of a long time coming. There's been a lot of work done, as Councillor Summer mentioned. However, I think the recent floods to me indicated that that particular area was land subject to inundation, and that actually occurred. Probably not to the extent that I thought it would, but apparently around 25 to 30% is what the figures I've got from our own planning department. Compared to other areas in and around Shepparton, which I've been advocating for a long time, which were almost zero affected. However, this area is subject to flooding. That's pretty obvious, and that's maybe one of the attractions to actually want to live there. We're going from 8 hectares down to 2, which is still a rural living size block, so it's not a smaller block. My concerns are that potentially, if this does occur, then those smaller blocks may then have the ability to then further subdivide, and eventually it may turn into a residential development. which, as I said, I'm not against residential developments at all. I just feel we're simply going out too far into areas that are highly vulnerable. So I'm not voting for it.
Fair point, Councillor Adam. Are there any councillors
I
that
don't
would
care
like
about
to
that.
speak for the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No? Closing comments, councillor Sutherland?
No, thank you.
Now go to vote. Is in favour? So. All councillors in favour? Motion carried. Councillors, we now go to page 43 of the agenda, item 12.2, adoption of amendment C233GSH to the Greater Shepparton Planning Scheme. The recommendation, can I have someone put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, yes, I will move the recommendations please on page 43 of the agenda, please.
Councillor Summer, can I have councillor second that motion? Councillor Dobson. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Briefly, this facilitates the use and development of land at 480 Raftery Road for rural living purposes, complements the previous recommendation and recognises the appeal of rural living as a local and metropolitan option for those wanting a tree change. Usually there is a minimum lot size of 8 hectares in the rural living zone, as mentioned by Councillor Adam, but this can be changed through resolutions such as this. This motion will bring the size down to 2 hectares, allowing for 6 lots. I'm personally comfortable with the outcome, particularly as native flora will be retained and fencing will be regulated. Let's give more kudos to the planning staff because they managed to resolve all of the objections received by submitters, which is just a bravo moment.
Very good. Councillor Summer, Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
This land has been the subject of a rezoning or a subdivision plan for about 20 years. And it's a lovely piece of land and it will be highly sought after. The land itself lies above a floodplain, but it has the added attraction of the land going down into the riverine section of the Goulburn River and will provide a lovely backdrop. But not only that, the owners of the land, I think, have complied with all the necessary rules and regulations, and it'll be just part of the Kyalla area going forward. It matches up with the existing Arcadia Downs estate, which has been probably one of our more premier estates, as the truth be known out there. And with the previous motion that we passed, I think all of that area will become a premium area. I listened to what Councillor Dem was saying about the flooding, but the planning, as I understand it, has taken all that into consideration, as have the minor objections by the Country Fire Authority, who did have some concerns, but I believe that all those objections have been met. But it's a nice area out there at Kyalla, and I think this is the highest and best value that the land can be given. So I commend the motion.
Very good, Councillor Dobson. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I just want to further expand on points that have already been made, really, but I do want to recognise that this particular piece of land, and it's most pieces of land, but particularly this one, is a perfect example of the conflict between humans and nature, and that through this process, there have been some very significant post-exhibition changes implemented to make sure that there is a bit of harmony between the two, including the protection of native vegetation, the requirement for fences to be stock and dog proof, and that they must not exist in woodland sections of the property. So it is trying to maintain the benefits of both and all. And this, of course, is just the first stage. It was recognised in our 2050 plan, as was the previous item that we covered. So this is growth that has been coming for a long time, and it will, of course, stimulate conversations around what that growing area looks like and what it does need as a almost a small township of its own. And those questions will be raised in further processes that take place. Planning is a long, it's a long game, and each stage is important. So I'm happy to see this, that we've now reached this stage of the process, and that it will be going through for the planning team amendment. Thank you.
Very good, councillor Spinks, thank you. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Adam?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. Realising that this is actually adjacent to the previous matter we discussed, I feel this one has had some good controls put over it. It's also very flood prone, however, that's been addressed. People who will be purchasing potentially these blocks are knowing full well they won't be utilising half that block anyway, potentially. So I think it's been controlled sufficiently. It's a niche development, and I can appreciate that it would be quite a lovely place to have a house, so I have no objection to this particular one.
Very good, councillor. Any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? We now go to the closing comments, councillor Summer?
No, thank you.
Very good. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Carried on. Go to agenda item 13, on page 52, curbside transition project, community engagement, communications and education plan. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'll move that the council note the project plan for the curbside transition and the community engagement, communications and education plan for the curbside transition rollout.
Thank you, councillor Summer. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Brophy.
I second that motion.
Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I did initially object to this, surprise, but I objected it due to questions around data modelling and the risk of increased rubbish dumping. We did resolve to press forward so that we align with state government policy. The change to fortnightly red bin collection and the introduction of a purple glass bin could be very disruptive for residents, so I'm pleased we're on the front foot in implementing education campaigns. The motion proposes to roll out, the plan proposes to roll out changes in Tatura and Kyalla in the first instance, so that council can take those learnings and implement them into a broader rollout 6 months later. The input from Kyalla and Tatura will be highly valued in ensuring success of this rollout in later years, and ultimately highly valued in establishing a broader circular economy. I look forward to adopting an updated waste services policy at a future meeting, and hopefully we can enlist the support of Tatura and Kyalla to make sure this is a resounding success right across the municipality, and all of my concerns are allayed.
Councillor Summer, thank you. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. First, and I've said it all along, that I've said from the outset, do I want a fourth bin? No. Do I want a red bin collected only fortnightly? No. Reality check, it's happening. We have been mandated, as Councillor Summers said, by the Victorian Government to put this into place, and other strategies as well, and really sooner than later. We need and we must be better at our waste management by council, by our corporate, by our commercial, but also by our community. And a local solution is needed, and in this case, house by house. We are getting better at our recycling, but we must go to the next level now. The project plan and the rollout is strategic and it is communicative. There will be those that this incremental change, because of their particular circumstances, may not be of benefit, and those special needs will be taken into consideration as well. I know that Kyalla and Tatura are up for the challenge, and I think that they will read first, and we'll get some great learnings from them as well, but they will be the first and they'll roll it out, and in a short period of time, they won't even notice the difference, I'm hoping. The main point though, however, is one I and other councillors have put forward at the forefront of this, is that clear messaging, very clear messaging, what goes in what bins. Make it really simple, make it really clear. Strong education, because I think in the past we haven't had that. Community engagement, and this is what we're doing, and effective communication as well as the engagement as well. I think with all of that, I support this planning going forward and the rollout, and I'm buoyed by the fact that the council officers and what they've presented to us is very, very communicative. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion?
Thank you, Ms. Sally. I just want to speak in support of this continued and almost more important need that we're discussing today, however many months down the track from that initial discussion. As we know, we need to be reducing how much is going to our landfill, and through this flood event, we've seen a lot go to our landfill. That space is filling quicker than ever over those last few months, couple of months, and that will have impacts down the track. We need to reduce what is going in those red bins, going to landfill. We've also seen, independent of the council conversation, that the soft plastics red cycle scheme has fallen through, which is indicative of the lack of circular industries that exist in our state, in our country, and like the world. And that the only real answer is to get the right things in the right things and out of that red bin going to landfill. We have to be doing this work, and we have to be leading and really on the front foot. So I'm very, very glad to see that there is such an ambition to communicate and to educate and to come along together. There will be bumps. It's probably going to be hard, but we're going to get where we need to be. And this is a very thorough and again, ambitious plan to do the work. I have been not supportive of the trial process. We've been discussing it, and I had concerns that it would make it more complicated for the community, and that it would create some challenges that weren't needed. But I do have faith. It is being led by a director of infrastructure who has done this process before with the council before us. We are being led by good people that know this work, and our community is in good hands to get it done. And we've got a solid another year to try and get our heads around it. So this is a great plan, and it's going to have very good outcomes. Thank you.
Very good, thank you, Councillor Spinks. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Owen?
I just want to add one detail. Everything's said has been correct, valid. The basic fact is, up until now, only 45% of the glass that we've been throwing out has been recycled. This will ensure that 90% is recycled. And as we know, glass takes up a certain space, doesn't crush, well, it does, but it doesn't change the actual space it takes up. So just that one factor, that one thing, I think is important enough for this to have to happen. Even though Councillor Bovey doesn't want 4 bins, he's going to have to fall in line.
Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I've been experimenting with my own, sort of making some changes myself at home in regards to getting used to the bin itself. So that has changed my ways of using my bins properly. But I think what's really, which has changed my thoughts and et cetera, was our education around that too as well. And I think the council's got a great education team, and the product and also the education we've been promoting with this as well. I think I want to congratulate our team on doing that too as well. Councillor Dobson and myself have been big campaigners on the stickers on the bins too as well, in regards to what goes in the bins, and I think that's critical in regards to this project too as well. But it's about, and as Councillor Brophy said, you have to be quite consistent and clear on what goes in what bin along that. So it's going to be great to see some results on the trial section. I know that myself, I've changed the way that my rubbish, so I encourage our community to follow suit. Not particularly what I do, but I know that I have changed the way that I've using the bins too as well.
Councillor James. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak?
I think so.
Okay. Councillor Summer, closing comments?
No, thank you.
Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried. Go to page 58 of the item 13.2, award of contract number 2239, construction of Florence Street Skip Lane. There is a recommendation. Councillor, put that forward as a motion. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I move that the council accept the tender submitted by Apex Earthworks Proprietary Limited, contract number 2239, construction of the Florence for the lump sum price of $4,905.03, including GST, and point 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to execute such documents as are necessary to effect to this resolution.
Thank you, councillor Adam. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Abdullah?
I'll second this motion.
Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, look, obviously this is, I believe it's well overdue. This is a little slip lane there off the Midland Highway into Florence Street. Very busy intersection. Obviously, we have one of the largest shopping.
Clarification.
Yeah.
Off Florence into Benalla.
Yeah, well, sorry.
Just clarification.
I was looking it upside down. Sorry, councillor. It's a very busy intersection, obviously, as I was saying. Case. And we have one of the largest retail establishments across the road. There's been some accidents there over the years, I think. I know a couple of myself personally, not me involved personally, but other people. So it's a good job. And one of the beauties of this particular project, we won't interfere with we hope not anyway, with the general movement of traffic through that area for any extended period of time. So I fully support that. And just quite, you mentioned that it's been funded 50-50 by the federal government ourselves. So that's always a good.
Very good. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak?
Yeah, very briefly, just want to point out to the financial implications section of the report, and just want to clarify that although this particular tender is, the contract is it's within the budget that was allocated, and the remaining, the balance of the budget after spending this, spending on this contract is going to be used on other works within the same project. So it's not as if, so by looking at the financial implications summary, it might appear that we have got some $100,000, and so, but that amount is to be spent on other parts of the project, but not on this particular contract. That's the clarification I wanted to make.
Very good, Councillor Abdullah. Thank you. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Summer? Oh, yeah, I was looking that way. Councillor Summer.
Thanks. Just quickly, population's growing, traffic counts are growing. This is likely one of many slip lanes needed to ensure smooth flow of traffic. Hopefully it's not too disruptive for residents. And I'm hopeful, but I guess it won't be because it'll be under delegation, that whatever those supplementary projects are to the tune of that amount of money, I don't know what that scope is, just as a note.
Councillor Summer, are there any councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Spinks?
Thank you. Just to also mention that I think most would probably realise the middle of that intersection is starting to fall apart, and the scope of these works to capture those repairs as well. So it's very good timing that this project has come along. And also for the sake of just closing a lovely conversation circle, this is an example of a project that with the now increased delegation wouldn't need to come to a council decision, and ultimately it will have gone through the exact same tender process, the exact same governance, all the works that go in around it, and we wouldn't have to just go through that extended process. So just for the sake of, may or may not be relevant.
I was just going to say, this, what we've endorsed is the $1 million. This is over, so this would still go through the same process.
It's $1 million with GST.
This is including GST. Pick up.
Yeah.
Very good.
Point down.
So
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak to the motion? We'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried unopposed.
We're going to have some very short.
Councillors, we now go to page 62 of the agenda, item 13.3, award of contract number 2261, construction of Andrew Fairley Avenue, Lockwood Road / Old Dookie Road intersection. Councillor, can I have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Dobson.
Thank you, Mayor Saleh. I'll move that the Council 1 award contract number 2261 construction of Andrew Fairley Avenue / Lockwood Road / Old Dookie Road intersection upgrade to Mawson Constructions Proprietary Limited for the lump sum price of $2,049,378 and most importantly 43 cents, including GST, and 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to execute such documents as are necessary to give effect to this resolution.
Very good. Councillor Dobson. Thank you. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor
second the
Spence.
motion.
Yeah. Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Saleh. This recommendation has been approached with some trepidation by council and with a lot of thought gone into it. And I guess we've gone into it, and I know that it hasn't got full support, but we have been given some assurances that, in fact, this construction site will take into consideration the progress of the existing one in Wellsford Street. I've also been told that we've been told that there won't be a complete block off of the intersection. There'll be parts, one side will be done, the other side will be open. I'll also note that the proposed start will probably interact with the new school year, will probably interact with the fruit season, and of course those elements must be taken into consideration. However, council has been advised that bus companies and SPC have been part of the discussions, as has local operators within the area, and I have been given a deal of comfort by what's been told to us about how this operation is going to go ahead. I understand there'll be some trepidation about this going ahead. It's got to be done. We're assuming that, we're assuming that the bulk of the Wellsford Street operation will have completed by then. The other point is this: is if we lay this on the table, or if we disagree with it at this time, and we go back, there may, and we re-tender it, we may not be getting it for the sort of money that we're getting for it now. So there's a tricky one, this one, but there's a lot of faith and goodwill in putting this forward to council for resolution.
Very good, Councillor Dobson. Thank you. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. This is, it's a very, very busy little intersection, and the upgrade to lights will be beneficial for both traffic and also for pedestrians. It is in a section of town that has had a great increase in both foot, cycle and vehicle traffic, and so it's very due works. Obviously, traffic and roadworks have been very topical of late, and it's very much led me to reflect on the fact that the Greater Shepparton population in the next couple of decades is expected to grow quite a large amount. So I think it's important that we're doing these works to try and get in front. If traffic is bad now, it's going to be a lot worse with another 20,000 cars on the road. So I think it's important. That's very dramatic, but it would be a lot of cars. But I think it's very important that we're doing these works and not holding back on these works wherever we can. Definitely there have been a lot of learnings lately. We've paid more attention than we've ever paid before on how roadworks work and how they impact traffic. But as I'm sure we all driving around right now today see, there are a lot of different roadworks happening. It is possible for many roadworks to happen simultaneously and people can still get to where they need to be. And I have every faith that this will also take place in that manner successfully, and will only take as long as it needs to, and we'll have a much better outcome on the other end of it. Thank you.
Very good, Councillor Spinks. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I don't support this intersection upgrade at this particular time. I do support the upgrade, of course, but it's just the actual timing of this construction. We've been questioned about our timing over the last couple of weeks, and as Councillor Spinks pointed out, there are some concerns. I mean, I hear the concerns in council supporting this project. I would prefer that we complete our scheduled roadworks first, i.e. as in Wellsford Street, before we start this construction. There's no guarantee about the completion of Wellsford Street. We've been told a completion date, but with the Christmas holidays period approaching, and obviously there's no guarantee whether our construction workers will be working over that Christmas period. There'll be another delay as in January, but we're also not sure on what's going to happen with wet weather as well, which may delay the Wellsford Street further. The expected start time of this project is projected to be around about the time, and as Councillor Dobson pointed out, at that particular time, we've got school resuming. back in 2023. We have SPC. It is a busy time for us in that area too as well. So a number of issues that are happening at that particular time, and we've still got some roadworks happening right around the town. I preferably like to see Wellsford done and dusted, traffic flowing quite freely before we start this project. So, on these particular concerns is the reason why I'm not supporting this particular project.
Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Adam.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Ali. Look, I take on board everything that everyone said, and Councillor James just pointed out he will support the actual upgrade, obviously, but the timing is going to be a problem. Could be a problem. We've been assured by staff that this effectively won't begin till February, before it starts causing any inconvenience to travellers. However, the fact that the school will be resuming at that point, the school will be going for 8 or 9 months beyond that point, so it won't make any difference really, of whether it starts at the early start of school or later down the track. The fact that it won't be cut off completely for through traffic is a plus, but ultimately if we wait for every project to begin and finish completely before we begin another project, I don't think we'll deliver 20 or 30% of our capital program. So I think there's enough buffer there for this to effectively be implemented and finished without causing too much problems. I support it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Adam. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Ms. Ali. I'm speaking against the motion simply because there is no clear start date or timeframe. It could be a case of thrice speaking twice shy, but after 1, lockdown, 2, floods, and 3, the traffic jams from Murungi Street works, I am not prepared to take the risk of placing residents under any more duress, especially during busy periods. I can't agree to the project unless some solid dates are locked in, so unfortunately I do need to object.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. I was waxing and waning as well with some other councillors as to whether I was going to go for it or against it. I mean, there's mention of even a partial closure of Sir Andrew Fairley Avenue. I know a former mayor would be actually having still nightmares of the mention of the closing of Andrew Fairley Avenue, and probably watching this particular live stream at the moment. I'm in support of the tender process, the contract price, and the project in general. However, I do have reservations in respect to the timing and the traffic flow efficiencies. I truly hope that I am wrong with that, and that the timing does marry in with the other works that are taking place in and around Shepparton, and that's also in consultation with the Department of Transport, not just council works as well. I bet some of these may be simultaneous, but that we need to ensure that the traffic flow is at the absolute minimum around town and that there is minimal delays at all. Everyone understands that there are delays, and as long as there are alternatives, then people can actually do that. Unfortunately, in the last case, there were no alternatives for a number of people. Transports do require better manoeuvrability around that particular intersection. There's no question about that. And I hope that the design really does accommodate this. I do have concerns, however, that small strip of road can become so congested, and that would actually flow on, particularly during the construction, into Knight Street, into Hordern Street, etc. If you look at it, you've got the roundabout at the corner of Knight Street and Hordern Street, and that can be fairly congested at the best of times, particularly pre and post school times. You've then got the railway line with their boom gates as well. You then move on a little bit further, maybe 15, 20 metres, you've got the boom gates of SPC going across there, and then another short distance to the roundabout there, where they're proposing there will be an actual stop area there. I am concerned about that, and particularly relying on third parties involved here, in particular RRV, who are going to be helping with the traffic signal systems. I do recall that themselves, not that they were the culprits here, but the corner of Macintosh and Wyndham Street, which we're still waiting for. And of course there's a railway line near there as well. So to coordinate all of that to make sure that it does work, I am concerned with this project that on the timing aspect of it, It's a project that is needed because you do need that particular flow in and around there. The roundabout is far too small. We've exceeded that what can actually be used for it now. It does need to be upgraded, but I do have reservations in terms of the timing, and it really can't commence for some time. So hopefully the contractors Mawson's Contract Constructions will understand that, and that they'll want to be able to accommodate that as well.
Very good. Thanks, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Toomey.
Thank you. Just want to emphasize that, as everybody else has also said, we have really discussed this project in the light of everything that has happened with the current road works. And we have been given assurances that I think in this round, on this particular project, there's a lot more flexibility on changing traffic movements, should there be a major issue. And also, you know, at the end of the day, councillors always have the ability to intervene and make some important decisions. So again, it's a balancing act, like, do we really want to wait for the project, one project to finish before we start another project? That is not going to be helpful in the end, because, you know, as others have said, my fellow councillors have already said, that it would delay the projects, and we would not be able to complete our capital works project in this manner. So that is, so I think I'm comfortable that we have done the risk assessment, we know what needs to be done, and of course, with the community also, for the community, I think I just want to request that be a little bit, that there will be inconveniences for sure, but I think we all have to sacrifice a little bit for some better gains and huge gains. So this roadworks is very important, but we'll make sure that we are monitoring it very closely, and if there are any major inconveniences or issues, then we intervene and we make some timely and appropriate decisions at that time. So I'm happy to endorse this project at the moment.
Very good, Councillor Abdullah. I'll just say a few things, if that's okay, before I go to Councillor Dobson for closing comments. And I in some ways appreciate Councillor James and Councillor Summers' reservations in wanting to support this, and I did have more concerns initially as well, being mindful of the Wellsford Street works and acknowledging that, you know, that we just probably didn't consider all factors when we rolled these works out. But credit to the executive and Gary, our Director of Infrastructure, that when it was highlighted that clearly we needed to do something as soon as possible, that was resolved and Marongi Street was open. I think that provides a significant relief to those travelling from the west into Shepparton as well. We understand there's still some congestion heading back across the causeway, but it's that balancing act and giving and taking on a major intersection. Now, this one here is clearly different, which has been highlighted at the openings through that period of time in regards to, you know, possibly one lane open and then different connection points, which is different to a full closure. So expected start date, you know, very late January, early February, pending all factors that we've heard around the table now as well. By then, I'm really confident that Wellsford Street will be really progressed, obviously pending weather and all the other things that we can't control. But and then that will obviously then offer that space to sort of keep progressing and get into the works as well. So I personally have full confidence with our infrastructure team, Gary, our director, Peter, obviously CEO, and acknowledging what we've been through with Wellsford Street, that we clearly, as councillors, executive, and as a community, want to go through that again. So I think it's very clear what we expect with that project and how it should be rolled out. Councillor Dobson, would you like closing comments?
Yeah, we're talking about traffic flow problems here, and that traffic flow problem will be here in June or December or March or April. You might say that the fruit season will have added importance, and yes, it will, but the cannery these days goes for 52 weeks of the year. I've been given a great comfort by some of the discussions that we've had with management as to how they're going to go about organising the traffic flow, and I think it's not quite the same as what we had in Wellsford Street, but I think there's been a lot learnt about the Wellsford Street intersection upgrade, and that is, I must say, that's progressing very well. I had a look at it today and it really is progressing well. Can I just also say that it wouldn't surprise me that other avenues from Mooroopna to Shepparton could be opening over the next period, the water levels of the Goulburn River has dropped below the road levels in both down at Toolamba. And I was surprised to hear the traffic count down there. We had a report on the traffic count down there in the hundreds on a daily basis. And certainly on the Watts Road area, that's almost in the thousands, if my memory serves me correctly. So there will be some diversions around. This will add some burden, there's no doubt. And as Councillor Abdullah said, look, we've got to get this done. And I certainly appreciate those who are speaking against it. And I have the same reservations. I'm just acting on the basis of the information that I've been given by management to say that they can handle it.
Very good. Thank you, councillors. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Against?
Let's start again.
All those in favour? Against?
Division, please, Mayor Sali. Sorry.
Sali, councillor Brophy, councillor Smith, councillor Adam, councillor Dobson, councillor Abdullah. Against? Councillor James, councillor Summer. Motion carried. Councillors, we now go to page 66 of the agenda, item 14, confidential management report. Required, item documents for signing and sealing, nil received. We now go to page 67, item 16.1.1, councillor activities, October 2022. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Have someone move that as a motion. Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. I'd like to move the recommendation that council receive and note the summary of the councillors' community interactions and informal meetings of councillors.
Councillor Brophy, can I have someone second that motion? Councillor Dobson. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, it's quite remarkable that there are so many community interactions in that particular month. In fact, the second half of the month was absolutely locked down with floods. And with the recovery, and to be able to have attended what we've been able to attend at that time. The diaries have been absolutely full for us to attend. I counted alone, I think I attended at least 20 of those particular ones listed there. There had been postponements, there's been cancellations, but on top of all of those ones that have been put off, we were still able to get to meetings, to briefings, to advisory committees, to sandbagging, and also to community engagements. And I think what's probably not written in these particular, even if they say informal interactions and that, are the one-on-one community interaction that we've had with so many across our municipality that we may not have, and unfortunately had to have had because of the flood situation. But to see the councillors out there talking to shop owners, to individual residents in their homes, in their streets, that's what it's all about, that grassroots connection from a leadership, from local government, right through down to the people on the street and the people that have been flood affected. And this is a councillor activities, but I can tell you that would be mirrored with our council officers as well. They've been through the month of October. Absolute kudos to them, remarkable people, superhuman efforts. So well done, everyone.
Thanks, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak?
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think more importantly than what the councillors have done over the last few weeks is what the council staff has done. The people putting in 12-hour shifts down at the recovery centre, and that's our staff. And you didn't have to ask them; they all jumped in. So I'd just like Peter and his team to that we acknowledge all that. I'm a bit disappointed in this report, only on the basis that it didn't report that Councillor Adam and Councillor Brophy took a trailer load of rubbish around. They didn't quite get it offloaded for the day.
Councillor James.
Oh, Councillor James. I'm glad at the end of the day that they were able to find a rubbish tip that they can put their road, but they got the one load away, and I thought that was magnificent.
It's a lie.
Loads.
It's actually not, so I'm not going to ask him. Conspiracy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion?
Just, yeah, one of the highlights of that month also, Mayor Sali, was we had the Governor-General, Honourable David Hurley, and his wife was here as well. And that was great to have a man of his stature here in our town as well. So it was great for to see the Governor-General here as well. And Mrs. Hurley also introduced us to a great song, which brightened up
You are my sunshine.
A great singer too.
and it was, You Are My Sunshine, and that heightened, but it also made us feel quite good as well. So that was a highlight of our,
That now, but
and we will not be singing that any
are
further.
there any councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried. No opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 69 of the council committee reports. Nil received. 16, motion amendment or rescission. Nil received. Item 17, urgent business not included on the agenda. Nil received. Is there any urgent business arising? No. 18, close of meeting. I will do that now at 4:50 PM. Thank you.
Thank you.